Good morning, students. This is Mr. Carlson, your geometry teacher this year. Before I get started on reviewing this vocab, which is why I'm sending it home to you ahead of time, this is stuff you're supposed to already know, or most of it. You will be quizzed on it. I expect to know it throughout the year, right from the beginning here. Two things. First, you need to get yourself a compass. Those that bring a compass to class the very first day will get extra credit. That's the first way of getting extra credit. Another one will be at the end of this lesson right here. Second is I have sent home, or will be sending home this weekend as well, your syllabus or expectations letter. Make sure you read through that. I might even do a listening to thing like this video on it as well. I haven't decided yet. That way, hopefully, I'll answer most of your questions through this video on it as opposed to in class. And you can always refer back to it. Okay, so let's get started with review material here. You should learn this either Math 8 and or Algebra 1 if you did much geometry, but I know the Math 8, talking to them last year, they went over shapes and some geometry and all that, and so this is all should have been in here. So first thing is point. Point has no dimension. You can either have 0, 1, 2, or 3 dimensions. Point has 0. Line, segment, line, and ray have 1 dimension, and a plane has 2 dimensions. Space or 3D objects would have 3 dimensions. Okay. Now going back to naming a point. The way we name a point is always with a capital letter. Okay. Cannot use lowercase letters. So as you will go through these slides here, you'll see that every point is labeled with a capital letter. If you put a lowercase letter on it, you get marked wrong. So don't do it. There is a reason in a place that we use lowercase letters, and that will be explained in this video as well. All right, next one, line segment is part of a line. Notice I've just underlined the word segment because that's all I say is a segment. If you want to say line segment, that's fine, same thing. Okay, you're not going to get marked wrong, but you're going to only hear me say segment most of the time. Okay, at the very beginning, I might go back and forth, say segment or line segment, your choice, just to remind you. But after that, I'll just be saying segment. Segment has 2 endpoints. There are no beginning points in math. They always call them endpoints. They end there. The symbol for a segment is a segment symbol. You put it above the 2 letters, the 2 endpoints. If it's a segment, it doesn't matter if I call it segment OP or segment PO. That's why they're both here. Okay. Between any 2 points, obviously these are 2 points on P. Between any 2 points, there's always an infinite amount of points, no matter how small. P was there and O was there, there'd still be an infinite amount of points in between those 2. Just know that in case that's ever asked as a quiz or test question. Okay, next. Line. Line, we have arrows at the end, meaning it goes on forever in both directions. A line is named by 2 letters usually, almost always, and it's any 2 points on the line. Line BC or line CB, doesn't matter the order you say it in. So here's line BC or line CB. You must have the arrow symbols above it. If you do not, it means something else and you'll get marked wrong. Okay. The other way that a line can be named is if it has a lowercase letter that's not a point, that's at the quote end of a line because there is no N really, but next to the arrow here. So this K was next to this arrow and it might be above it like that right there. We could call it line K, and in that case you would use a lowercase because lowercase is never going to be capital there. But if they're points on the line, they will always be capital letters, and you have to use capital letters when you name it here. That's the second way of naming a line if it's there. Otherwise, any 2 points. If there's 10 points on this line, I can choose any 2 of those points. It doesn't have to be the ones closest to the quote end where the arrows are. Excuse me, any 2 points. Okay. A line, remember I told you, is one-dimensional. Okay, there's an infinite amount of points on a line because between any 2 points on a line, there's an infinite amount of points as well. Okay. Collinear and non-collinear, next 2 vocab words. Co means same. Linear means line. You can see the first 4 letters of the word linear is line. Should be easy. You should know that from Algebra 1. Okay. You drew or graphed linear equations all the time, or a lot, not all the time, but a lot, and you named them. You came up with the equation of linear uh, of lines themselves. So linear should be very familiar. That means line to you. Co means same line. Non, it means not. So non-collinear would be not the same line. So these 4 points, all capital letters that are points, are collinear. I can take a ruler and go through all of them at one time. These 4 points are non-collinear. I can't take a ruler and go through all 4 of them. I can only go, in this case, through 2 of them at a time. Okay, even if I can go through 3 of them, and they're not the 4th one, it'd be non-collinear. Now, in order to be non-collinear, there must be at least 3 points. You can't have 2 points and call it non-collinear, because between any 2 points, that determines a line. So they'd be collinear. But if you have 3 or more points, they could be non-collinear. So I could just have A, B, and C, and that's non-collinear, or A, B, and D. But they also have to be non-collinear. If I had this A, B, and C, they're still collinear. Or if I had this B, C, and D, they're still collinear. So they have to be not on the same line and at least 3 points. Remember that. Next, ray. Ray has an endpoint, goes through another point, and keeps going on forever. Okay? And you start by naming the endpoint. In this case, G, since they're points again, the capital letters you see. And here's the symbol for ray GH. G is the endpoint, so it goes underneath the endpoint, and it goes through H forever. Most people write it this way, like to draw the arrow to the right. But if you like to draw your arrow to the left, well, then your endpoint is over here on the right side. So that's the same endpoint, G, that has to be right here underneath this endpoint, and it goes through H forever. So it can be written either way. This left is the most common way, but both of these are right. Okay, just in case you were to see this on a multiple choice quiz or test. Those are the same thing right there. You may not call it ray HG because H is not the endpoint and it doesn't go through G forever. Okay, so the ray begins at a point called the endpoint because it marks the end of the ray and infinitely extends in one direction, goes on forever. And again, there's an infinite amount of points and it's one dimensional. One dimensional, just like a segment or a line. Point is 0 dimensional. Okay, put rays and lines together. Here's line AB, and this consists, you can come up with 2 rays here. I can start with an endpoint of B and go through A forever, and so the endpoint, it'll be ray BA, this one right here. Endpoint is B, goes through A forever, or I could start at A and go through B forever. So this would be ray AB. In this case here, A is the endpoint going through B forever. Okay, so those are 2 different rays. They're not the same ray. So notice ray BA is different from ray AB. Ray BA goes to the left here. It starts at B and goes through A forever. Ray AB starts to the left here and goes to the right forever. So you can see how you cannot switch the order of the letters for a ray. They're completely different rays. Lines, remember, you can name it with any 2 points, and you can say line AB or BA. Okay, you can switch the order for both lines and segments. All segments, rays, and lines have an infinite amount of points on them and one dimensional. Next, opposite rays and angles. I have these on the same page because there's similarities between them. If we look right here, opposite rays are rays that share an endpoint. Angles are rays that share an endpoint. Okay? So that's something that's common. We're going to compare and contrast this afterwards here. Okay, so opposite rays, they share an endpoint. That means the endpoint is the same one. In this case, J. Ray JK going to the right, ray JI going to the left. Here's my 2 rays. They share the same endpoint. Notice J is both their endpoints. Opposite means go exactly opposite one another. So they will form a line. 2 opposite rays form a line. Okay? Now down here it says 2 opposite rays form straight angles. That's true too, but in a straight angle is 180 degrees. So a line is 180 degrees, just so you know. Okay? We'll talk about angles next lesson. Okay, but a common answer also is opposite rays form a line. Okay, it just depends on the book. Over here now, these are not opposite rays, these are rays that go in different directions. Okay, so an angles ray shares an endpoint, M, ray ML and ray MN share that common endpoint of M, but extend in different directions. Okay, now technically, a straight angle, this opposite ray is an angle, it's an opposite, it's a straight angle as we just said right here. So technically that falls underneath there, but 99.9% of the time they aren't opposite, and thus this is a regular, just an angle. We don't usually often talk of straight angles 180 degrees in our normal angle um, thinking, but it is technically. Um, all right, so M, this common endpoint between these two rays, is called the vertex. Okay. Now notice I said common endpoint of the two rays slash segments. Okay, these are rays here because they have arrows that go on forever. But if it's a triangle like down here, notice there's no arrows that go on. It's just segments. And so that's angle H, angle F, and angle G. They're still angles, so they could be with segments. They don't always have to have arrows at the end to make an angle. All right, naming the angles now. 4 different ways at most. Most of the time there's only 2 ways. Okay, but this is the case where the most you can have is 4. So the safest way are these middle 2 using 3 letters. This symbol out front means angle. So angle M, angle L, M, N, angle N, M, L, and angle 1. That's your angle symbol. Okay, get used to writing that and drawing that all the time. So you're going to be dealing with angles throughout the year here. All right, so when I name it with 3 letters, which is the safest way, there's vertex, which is the common endpoint that the 2 rays share or 2 segments share. That always has to be the middle letter. Notice in both these, M is the middle letter. Then it doesn't matter which one I put on either side here. That's why you see L, M, N, or N, M, L. But M has to be in the middle. The vertex has to be in the middle. Those are the 2 safest ways to name an angle. You'll never go wrong if you do it that way. Now, if there happens to be a number here in that angle, you can also call it by that number, angle 1. Oftentimes you don't, sometimes you do. But most of the time you don't have, like down here, we don't have any numbers in here, so we can't call it by numbers at all. This is more common that you're going to see. But there'll be times where you see numbers and you can call it by that number. Lastly is if there's only one angle associated with that vertex. There's no other angles associated out here. So there's no other segment drawn or ray drawn anywhere out here. Then there's only one angle that this M can be, and I can call it angle M, just like this F here. There's only one angle F. Now, if I had gone ahead and drawn out a segment like that, I can no longer call this angle F. Because I don't know, because F could be that one, or the combination of the 2. So I have 3 possible angles right here associated with F. So I can't call it by a single letter in this case. I can call it H here and G here because there's only one angle associated with it. Okay, so the safest bet is not to use the one letter just in case there's other angles associated with it. Unless you're confident you know there's only one angle associated with like these 3 here, or this one here, do you call it by a single letter? Okay, so there's the 4 ways of naming angles. Notice they're all capital letters, okay, because they're all points. All right, so we talk about what's in common. They share a common endpoint. There's an infinite amount of points on them. Okay, and since they're rays, they extend infinitely long. What is different? Opposite ray goes in directly the opposite directions, whereas for the angles here, they go in different directions. There's only one exception when I do an opposite ray, where it's going to be in opposite directions for 180 degrees, or if it comes right back onto itself, it could be 0 degrees, and we'll be talking about those 2 next lesson. We talk about angles. Okay, so these are exceptions. Okay, remember compare and contrast, those are English words that you should be familiar with. Okay, and now I talked about how lowercase letters are used and how we name points with capital letters all the time. Well, here's where our lowercase letters come in. Lowercase letters are used to name side lengths. one way of naming side lengths. This little G, notice, is opposite capital G, because this angle, when I created this angle, it formed that side. If I take that angle, boom, right here and right here, and I connect those two endpoints, it created that side. So that's angle G, created side G. Angle F, when I connect its two endpoints here, it's created side little f here. And angle H, when I connect its two endpoints over here, created little h. So side lengths can be named with lowercase letters. That's where you see lowercase letters, and we saw it also if it's at the end of a line, above a line here. Okay? But points are always with capital letters. All right, plane. Okay? So plane is a flat surface that goes on forever. Okay, obviously you cannot draw that. So we usually draw it with what looks something like a parallelogram. If I know what a parallelogram is. In order to have a plane, I have to have at least 3 non-collinear points, or I have a single letter in one of the 4 corners. Okay, that does not have a point associated with it. Notice there's no dot here to make it a point like A, B, and C are. Just a single letter by itself. So naming a plane, we use 3 letters is the most common way. If there's A, B, C, and D, you could call A, B, C, D, but you don't have to. You just have to use at least 3 non-collinear. Remember, non-collinear means not in the same line. So if this C was moved up to right here, so A, B, and C were all collinear, we could not call it plane ABC. It'd only be called plane F. Since these are not collinear, I can now use all 3 of these letters in any order I want. So here I named all the different orders right here. Or like we said, plane F. Located in one corner of the plane, you see it doesn't have a point associated with it. Most time planes are named by 3 non-collinear points, but they may be called by 4 more points or just a single letter in one of the corners. You may not name a plane by 3 or more collinear points, as I pointed out. If that C was right up in here, so I could have taken a ruler and drawn through A, C, and B at the same time, making a line, I cannot call it that. It has to be 3 non-collinear points. Don't forget that. I can either use the word plane and then name the 3 letters, non-collinear points, or I can use the symbol. Here's the plane symbol. Looks like a parallelogram. Plane ABC. There's another way of calling it plane ABC or BAC or any of the other names up there. All right, planes are 2-dimensional. Okay, so we had point, 0-dimensional, line, ray, and segment, 1-dimensional, and plane, 2-dimensional now. Okay, all right. Now remember, see how we have 3 non-collinear points, 3 non-collinear points, but we don't have those named like we had up here, so we can't call them those planes by those points because we don't know the names of the points. But they have a letter in the corner. So this would be plane Z and this would be plane Y, just like this up here is plane F. Okay, so planes Z and Y each have their own coplanar points. Remember, co meaning the same plane. These 3 points are in the same plane, and these 3 up here are in the same plane. We don't see any of the points on here that are being both planes. Okay, now technically all these points along this line are the same, but none of them are identified in this figure here, so we can't call it anything. The intersection of 2 planes is a line. Okay, so this vertical plane and this horizontal plane intersecting a line. Remember, this does not look like a line, does it? Look like a line segment, not a segment as it appears, because remember, a plane goes on forever. This is horizontal forever, this is vertical forever. Okay, all the way across forever. So this would actually create a line. Don't get fooled when it comes to a quiz or test question on that. 2 planes intersect. Intersection of 2 planes is a line, not a segment. Multiple choice, segment will be there. And I might even have a drawing like that, and segment will be there. Some of you are not, who don't pay attention and listen to the video or study for a quiz or test, are going to pick segment and miss it instead of line. The intersection of a line and a plane. So let's say we have this vertical plane here, where it goes on forever. And I take a line, draw a line right through that plane this way. It's going to intersect in a point. So the intersection of a line and a plane is a point. Now there's an exception would be if the line itself was inside the plane. Then obviously the entire line is the intersection. Every point on that line would be intersected if it's in the same plane. That's a trick question. Okay. All right, so let's review everything we've done so far. Point, name it with capital letter. Lowercase letters are only used for sides of polygons, or perhaps naming a line if it's got a little lowercase letter above or next to the arrow at the end of a quote end of a line. Segment AB or segment BA, and here's what the segment would look like. Endpoints A and B. Ray AB. A has to be the endpoint. So A has to be the endpoint, goes through B forever. Cannot call this ray BA. B is not the endpoint. Line AB or line BA. Here's an example of this. Now I told you it means something different if there's no symbols above it. Here this is right here. Okay, no symbol above A and B means the distance from point A to point B. So distance is a number: 1, 1.3, 1.9, 2.5, 20, 50. That means a distance. Don't forget, this is the most commonly missed one throughout the entire course in geometry. You're going to see this over and over throughout geometry, off and on, and people are going to miss this. I'm going to be asking you this question, what this means, for extra credit throughout the year. So those of you who choose to memorize it right now and keep it memorized throughout the year, okay, you're going to earn more extra credit points if you're one of the first ones with their hand up to say it. Okay, and I call on you. There's no symbol above it. It means distance from A to B. That's why if you forget one of these symbols and you mean it to be one of these shapes, obviously that does not mean it. It means the distance. Completely different. That's why you get marked wrong without having the correct symbol above it. Don't forget this. And then here's plane ABC. As we talked about, it's got to be 3 non-collinear points. 3 or more non-collinear points. Okay. Or a single letter in one of the corners. Collinear means same line. Co meaning same. Linear line, same line, whereas non-collinear, not the same line. Coplanar meaning the same plane, and whereas non-coplanar, not the same plane. The intersection of two distinct means different, 2 different planes. That means not the same plane. Intersection a line. The intersection of a line, not in that plane, in a plane is a point. Okay, so now what I have here, and you can pause the video because I'm not going to leave it up here for long. Here's the questions. 13 is coming through 22. 10 questions. Those that get these 10 questions right, turn in at the beginning of class, first day of class, and have them right, and number them 13 to 22, just like they're here. Write down the question, drawing, and the answer. Okay, because everybody else will be writing them down in class. Well, you've got them turned in for me to check over at the beginning. For extra credit, everybody else will be having to write this down. Okay, so if you do it ahead of time, you won't be having to write it down because you're trying to get extra credit for it. All this is reviewing all that vocab we just did to make sure you understand it. This figure goes for 17 to 20. Again, just testing how to name things correctly, all of that. And the last set right here, same thing, vocab, what we just went over. Okay, see, and making sure you understand it. It will also be on your, some of this will be on your first quiz. Okay, several of these things will be on your first quiz and test. Okay, we'll be going over, I'm not putting any answers up on this or like that, because again, it's going to be extra credit. So besides bringing your compass as extra credit first day of class, if anybody does 13 through 22 here, extra credit as well. Getting them all right, that is. So just so you know that whenever I'm talking about extra credit, it's getting it all right, not partially right. Okay, just like I will ask questions in class throughout the whole year, vocab. Who can tell me the definition of this? So those that memorize their vocab from the very beginning and just keep adding on the new vocab and have it memorized. I'm going to keep asking, review vocab from earlier in the year, all throughout the year, and be asking all throughout the year, who remembers this definition? Okay, and sometimes it's for extra credit, and after a while, I just want everybody in the whole class naming it off, okay, and have it, just pop it off the top of your head. But I'll clarify if it's for extra credit or not throughout the year. All right, so also, like I said, reminder, read through the syllabus, course expectations letter. That's either attached to this or sent in another email. And then you'll be good to go with your compass for the first day of class. We'll see you then. All right, bye.